My name is Joe Peroni, and this is the Rise Above Project. And this is the second week in a row where the show just kind of wrote itself. I wasn't thinking about doing it, but it's just such an obvious thing. So I love the Olympics. I've been watching the Olympics since 1972 in Munich, and then after that, 1976 in Montreal, and I've watched them all. And I am watching the Olympics right now in Tokyo. Of course, the big story right now is Simone Biles. And it appears she has dropped out of the Olympic individual all-around competition. At the time I'm recording this, I'm not sure if she's going to be dropping out of the Olympics in total, which if I was a guessing person, I would say that she is, but I don't want to say that she is because that has not happened yet. So why does my opinion matter? I'm just another person and everybody seems to be offering their opinion on this. One of the things I would say is, number one, I've been involved in sports my whole life, so it's about 50 years so far. No, I am not at the level of Simone Biles. I don't think anybody is. But I have competed at the national level, and I also have competed at an international level. And I've lost count of how many bodybuilding trophies I have now. It's somewhere between 75 and 100. And I am a mental health clinician. I have a degree in exercise physiology, and I've been a personal trainer for about 35 years now. So I think I have somewhat of a unique perspective, and some of the perspectives that I've been seeing lately are just like everything else. Everybody is entitled to an opinion, but I thought I'd offer my 2 cents because, as usual, one of the interesting things that I've noticed since being a mental health clinician is that everybody thinks that they're a therapist now. And I don't really understand that. And we're looking at this particular issue with Simone Biles, and I'm seeing the same things. Like, we're talking about mental health, but not in really a productive manner at all, as far as I can see. So let's just take it from the top so you know where I stand. Do I think Simone Biles has any responsibility to the United States to compete in the Olympics? And to that I would say no. She does not have to entertain anybody. She doesn't owe anybody a medal. She has the right to protect herself if she doesn't feel ready. And she says she's protecting her mental health, which we'll talk about that later. I don't think she's actually doing that, but that's okay. She does, and that's all we need to know. And in doing so, she's also protecting her physical health, which I totally understand. Gymnastics is an extremely dangerous sport, and if she doesn't feel ready to perform, it makes sense that she should be able to drop out as she sees fit. Now, I know that there's other issues surrounding that, but I don't think anybody who has any level of empathy or compassion could make somebody compete, in such a dangerous sport when they don't feel ready. So that I would go along with there. But what I really want to do here is, let's take a look at some of the reasons that she has stated that why she doesn't want to compete. Number one, she says she wants to put her mental health first. Again, I'm going to challenge this a little bit later, but let's just go with what she says. Number two, she says that she's stressed out. Number three, she said COVID was very stressful for her. Number four, she said we should be having fun, and sometimes that's just not the case. And she used the word we. I don't know if that was just a mistake or if she felt like she needed to speak for her teammates, but she did use the word we. She said she has the twisties, which is really, when you get down to it, get past all the garbage that you're reading in the newspapers and on Facebook and all this, it really means underperforming due to stressors. Now, if you compete in anything, this is pretty normal. Not twisties, because that's unique to gymnastics. But let's say you're in martial arts and you're trying to put your fist through, let's say, a brick. If you suddenly have a lack of confidence or self-esteem and you pull up, most likely you're going to break your hand. When we played football, if you're running a distance and you're trying to, back in the day, you could spear people with your head, which would put a lot of pressure on your head and neck. If you didn't have full confidence that you were aiming through that person and you were just going to hit them, but you were locking up because you were afraid, the person who's afraid has a much, much more chance of getting a concussion or a broken neck because they're holding up. So what you want to do is burst through that person. So I could name every sport just about has what a version of twisties is. It's not unique that injuries occur and bad things happen when all of a sudden you have a lack of confidence. So let's just put that to the side. Number 5 on her list, 90% of her stress was due to social media. We'll talk about that a little bit later as well. And she says that the weight of the world is on me. She also said she had a tough week and she had a tough year. And let me pull up some more just because I tried to summarize all this. And there's a lot because she's on social media and she does a lot of interviews. Here she says, whenever you, meaning her, whenever you get in a high stress situation, you kind of freak out. I have to focus on my mental health and not jeopardize my health and well-being. Let me comment on this one first. First of all, no, it's not true. Whenever you get in a high stress situation, you kind of freak out. No, she does. Most people that are emotionally tough and strong, especially at a world-class level, they don't freak out under stress. And she says she has to focus on her mental health. By doing this, she's going to quit. Listen, if she really cared about her mental health, that's part of the training. And part of the training is to expose yourself to stress. There's not a person in this world that doesn't compete, that doesn't have stress. We all have this. And just because she's on the world stage makes no difference, because that's very condescending to people to say that. For example, let's say you're a little kid and you are in a school play. What do the parents tell this kid? Oh, you're stressed out, so just sit it out. Don't do any school plays. You have a spelling bee in 3 weeks. I know you're a little nervous because you don't want to get the answer wrong in front of a bunch of people. So you know what? Let's not study hard. Let's just sit it out, because it's a mental health issue here that you get scared and nervous. So let's sit it out. We're not going to do this. So you fell off a horse? That's okay. Never ride again. Don't worry about that because it's dangerous. Did you fall when you learned how to ride a bicycle? Yeah, that's scary. Let's not do that. And really, if you have any difficulty driving a car, if you've ever got into a car accident, it's scary because thousands of people die every year on the road. Let's not do that. So if we want to worry about your mental health, we just have to quit and stop doing it. That's how we have to deal with anxiety now. No, that's not true. So what I'm saying is, for a person who has such world-class ability and has access to world-class human beings, I know she has a therapist, but I think they probably, because I don't know her, but they may be talking about her, she's had a very rough childhood, I know that. She's had sexual abuse in her past, so maybe they're talking about that, and they should. I'm not saying no. But in terms of sports psychology, that's absolutely a wrong turn to think that the way you deal with your stress is to run away from it. What you need is more exposure to it to deal with the adversity. That's just part of it. So again, let's take a look at this. She says she's stressed out, COVID was stressful. Basically, everything has to do with the outside world. She said social media is stressful to her. Let's be honest. Listen, if you're a world-class athlete and you're worried about what a 12-year-old is going to say or have an opinion, you're not very emotionally strong. And if you're not, you can still get around that. This is how you get around it. You don't go on social media. Like, she has no business being on social media. If I was her trainer or I was her sports psychologist, that'd be the first thing that goes. Because if you can't handle it, there's no way you should be on there. And when she talks about being stressed out, that's how she handles it. That's the external world being enforced on her. If you had a very strong emotional system, right, with an immunity to outside pressures, you wouldn't be worried about any of this. But somehow every excuse she's making has to do with basic stuff that every athlete and every human being should be able to handle. This is interesting. She says the weight of the world is on me. Very, very self-centered and narcissistic. Listen, I think she's a victim of the times, but I think she's also a product of it, how we tend to just think of ourselves all the time now. Because listen, the weight of the world isn't on her. When she quits, she's going to have somebody else on the team win the gold medal, which has already happened. You're gone and replaced. That's the way it works. You're not that important, and you need to know that. That's a good thing to know, is that there'll always be somebody else after you. Most people I know are trying to make a living. The last time I looked, I think it's 4 out of 5 people live paycheck to paycheck. The weight of the world's not on her, okay? These people have a lot more important things to do. They care about whether they're going to make ends meet. They care about their kids making it in the world, or are their behaviors correct. They have much more important things to worry about than if she makes a flip or sticks a landing or not. So I don't know why she thinks like this, but it's a terrible thing for a sports psychologist. Like, that person's not doing their job, and she needs some mental health help here, but it's not to quit. In the current time, yeah, I would say that she needs to quit because she's not ready. But this should have been worked on months, if not years, beforehand. Let's see. It's been a tough week. It's been a tough year. It's been that for everybody. COVID was tough. Listen, most of us know somebody, or at least we know somebody who knows somebody who's died. So that's also absolutely no excuse. Again, having the weight of the world. Listen, we all probably know, or at least I do. I know lawyers that, they have a client that they believe is innocent. Maybe their life is on the line. I know surgeons. There's surgeons all over. I live about 2 miles away from the University Medical Center. Probably right now as I'm speaking, there's a bunch of people getting quadruple bypasses, and there's a family in the waiting room hoping that their loved one is going to make it. And yet there's a surgeon there doing their best. Maybe that person has the weight of the world on them. I live maybe about 4 or 5 miles from McCarran Airport. Let's say that too, if you're flying for Southwest and there's 300 people on the flight, you've got 300 souls on you. Maybe that person has the weight of the world on them. You're trying to stick a landing. I'm not degrading that. That's an amazing accomplishment that she can do, but her head is not in the right place. Again, she's not jumping off and quitting because of mental health issues because she's stressed. The way to handle it is to handle the stress beforehand. Let's continue with this. I have something else that she wrote, just so people don't think I'm making this up. She said, the outpouring love and support I've received has made me realize I'm more than my accomplishments in gymnastics, which I never truly believed. Listen, as a human being, as a therapist, that's sad. I can see this, but she truly lacks confidence and self-esteem. That's what this says. That's not fitting for a world-class athlete trying to make it. So when she says that, she's having difficulty with this is a core issue in her. This needed to be handled a long time ago. And let's see, there's more, but I'll just leave it at that because I could do this all day. Almost everything that comes out of her mouth just oozes weakness, and it's amazing when you see how incredible she is, at gymnastics. So is she a hero for having the courage to drop out? No. I read it all the time that she is, but we're going to have a little talk about that too. She's not a hero for dropping out and quitting. But is she a terrible person for dropping out? No, absolutely not. Listen, as far as I can see, she's just a person, and what she's doing is a risk to benefit analysis. And I think it's a pretty intelligent, smart, prudent decision on her part. because she probably could hurt herself in this type of mindset. And so that's really just it. It's not special, it's not anything. It's just a normal person being prudent. Unfortunately, when you prove to people that you're just human and you have flaws, you tend to disappoint people, especially all these people that put her on the mountaintop as being some type of goddess. And because of that, we kind of give her a break, right? We want to change the rules or change words. We want to reverse what values and virtues really are. Listen, she's a fine enough person, I'm sure of it, and she's one of the best gymnasts who ever lived. Unquestioned. But we can't change the words like resilience, okay? Because resilience means adapting to stress and adversity. Is she doing that? No. So sorry, she's not resilient. Now, I know she has worked through, like having a broken toe or kidney stones, but that's physical. But this is a little different animal for her. This is emotional. She can't get through it. And that's okay. That's okay. But we can't call her resilient when she's not. We can't change the definition because she's a good person. Overcoming odds and adversity, that's heroic. Is she doing that? No. She quit. Great gymnast, probably a great person, but can we call her heroic? Sorry, no, it doesn't meet the criteria. It does not meet the definition. Can't change the rules now. Courage. Courage is when you have fear, but you act and you perform anyway. Is she doing that? No. So does she have courage? I guarantee you she has courage, but in this particular instance, the answer is no. So when all these people are writing all these amazingly flowered, beautiful things about she is the new version of courage and resilience and grit, no, sorry, she's not. She needs help, is what she needs. That's what she needs. Authenticity, she has used that word. Authenticity does not mean giving in to your feelings. That's not what authenticity means. She's using it incorrectly. So again, because everybody thinks they're a therapist these days, and then people just write it and then they make it true because they say it more and more times. And no, she doesn't fit the criteria for being fully authentic. I would not say that. It does take a lot of guts, though, to back out at the right time. For sure. But here's the problem that I have, and this is not a Simone Biles problem. It's a societal problem. Because people take that as an excuse now to underperform. Right now as we speak, we'll see this a lot. Like you'll hear a lot about the male crisis. The male crisis really is a bunch of guys today that they sit in front of a computer all day masturbating. They play video games all day. They smoke marijuana all the time. And they have this thought of like, why should I go to college? You know, and the thought process is that these people really do this. Like if you call it in the manosphere, let's say. They're like, I'm a real man. I'm courageous and I'm authentic. And why do they say that? Because they're giving two middle fingers to society that tells them that they need to be valuable for society, right? Like, why should they try to work hard to make more money to support a wife and to support kids? You know, why should they do things that are valuable and maybe give up their life? You know, like a policeman or a fireman or somebody in the military. Why should they have to do that for society? Why can't they just live for themselves? So now they're showing courage by staying home and masturbating all day. That's authentic. And I know this sounds weird to some people because they haven't heard it, but this is really where we're going in a lot of our society. Not Simone Biles, okay? But what I'm saying is the reason why one of the reasons why she's getting so much positive feedback by quitting is because there's this mentality now that says if you quit and just do your own thing, like why should I work to raise a family? You know, it's on them. Why should I work to support a woman? Why should I help her? Doesn't matter. Let her do her thing. I don't need to put any extra pressure on me. If I'm sick, I'm not going to work. I don't need to do that. You know, why should I show typical manliness and virtues and values? Right? So that's what I'm seeing here that bothers me. It's not Simone Biles that bothers me. I'll say it again. In her particular situation right now, she is incredibly intelligent to sit it out. As a matter of fact, she has not said she's going to sit out the whole Olympics, but I hope she does. If she's in this situation where she's so tenuous with everything around her and people, and she's worried about people's opinions, I don't want her anywhere near there. She's not ready, and I don't want to see anybody get hurt. Are her issues self-inflicted? Unfortunately, listen, if we're going to help her, and if I had her ear, I have to tell her the truth. Her things right now are self-inflicted, right? Because it's always the outside pressure that's getting to her. It's like nobody gets into sports ever to impress the guy down the street or somebody. You do it for the love of it, and it should always go back to that. And if you forget that, somebody needs to put you back on course. So here's a few things I would tell her. Number one, if you don't have the self-esteem to handle the opinions of other people, then you need to stay off social media. Period. End of story. Number two, don't go out of your way to get attention. And don't go out of your way to disrespect the sport and your teammates by bedazzling your suit with GOAT on it. The GOAT, for people who don't know, G-O-A-T, means the greatest of all time. Listen, that's the worst thing you want to do, especially before a competition. Everybody who competes, I don't care if they're in last place, God, they want to win. And you just don't want to rile people up like that. And if you can't handle people's outside opinions on you, putting the pressure of the world on you, don't ask for it by bedazzling yourself. If you want to bedazzle yourself like that, then just do something with USA, maybe, because no one would say anything about that. Why is it disrespectful to call yourself the greatest of all time? Because I think the only person I know who could do that was Muhammad Ali. Because number one, he backed it up, but number two, because he had a loving thought about that. Like, it was fun. He was doing it in jest. So he was enjoying it and trying to build up attention and build up money for the fight. And so, but he didn't have this anger about it. What I read about her, I'm going to read this so I get it right. She did it to antagonize her haters. That's why she bedazzled her suit like that. Listen, if you want to antagonize haters, but you can't really deal with other people's opinions because of the stress, that's the last thing you want to do. I don't know who let her out there like that with that suit, but that person who's ever helping her is not helping her. They need to be fired. Something else, champions should not be affected by onlookers ever. Something else that I'll throw in too, I think she's a little bit too enthralled with doing these amazing moves that nobody else can do. It's almost like comparing an apple to an orange. She's so far over here with her skill level that she forgot that the basics are important. So if you get nervous and you want to pull back a little, you should be able to do it with no problem. But she can't, because she's so worried about doing the most magnificent, death-defying feats that she doesn't know how to pull back. I'll give you an example. Nadia Comaneci. Listen, she could just sit down and drink a glass of water and she's going to get a perfect score, because everything she did was to perfection. The way she walked, the way she moved her hands. When you saw her compete, everything she did was a work of art. It wasn't that you were waiting for the one big jump, because everything she did was amazing. So you could take a lot of skills away from Nadia and she would still win, because again, everything she did was perfect. To give you another idea of that, in bodybuilding. Bodybuilding to me was the most beautiful artistic sport ever, for me. It included symmetry, proportion, you had to pose to music, and it was great. And it was just, everything about it I just loved. But the sport is dying, it's dead. It used to be on major TV channels, but it's not anymore. What happened was, now you can probably judge a show by just putting sweatsuits on and weighing them, because what they do is they go by the biggest guy in the show all the time now. And so a lot of the beauty has been taken out of it. They don't even judge the posing anymore. Right now it's become a contest of just, boom, dazzling somebody with size, but nothing else. So right now it's become a big contest of who could take the most steroids, who could take the most growth hormone, who could take the most insulin, and then try to live and just get bigger, and then do a show for a couple of years and just be bigger than everybody. But all the beauty has been taken out of it. You know, in 1979, Frank Zane won. He had the most beautiful body probably in the history of the world. The guy was like 5'10", only 185 pounds. You know, by today's standards, he can't even win a local show. You know, so just some thoughts I had about that. Again, I don't want this show to get too long. I think I'm going to make it into 2 parts because I really want to talk about Kerri Strug and some of these other athletes that really should be named, but I can't do it today because it's going to get way too long. So let me talk about Simone Biles and being humble and having some humility. Because what happens now is that we all want to say, because we're living in the year 2021, that everything now is the best because we're here. It's not true. And she should know that. Again, she's a victim of her environment. She's buying into all this social media garbage that says she's the greatest of all time. Listen, she's in the conversation. But in order to be humble and not put the weight of the world on you and all this pressure, she should acknowledge other things. Here's an acknowledgement. Considering for her to be the greatest of all time, she shouldn't care, because that's legacy. That's on other people. She can't control that. She should pay attention to being the latest of the greatest right now. That she can control, kind of. She can't control the judges, but she can control herself, and it should only be about her. Let me give you an example of a music example. Jimi Hendrix is considered to be the greatest guitar player of all time by most people. When asked what it's like to be the greatest guitar player of all time, he said, I don't know. Ask Terry Kath from Chicago. Ask somebody else, because that's not me. And at some point when pressured further, he said, well, I'm the best guitar player sitting in this chair right now. So again, humble, it goes a long way. It takes away the pressure and it makes people like you more, and you won't have as many haters. So let's go over this. Simone Biles. Let's just go over the Olympic record here, which is amazing. She has 4 golds and 6 medals up to date. It's amazing. But what kind of company does she have? There are 8 other female gymnasts who have at least 8 medals, which is 25% more. So in that, she doesn't make the top 8 in terms of medals. That's a problem, right? She should know this. Let's take a woman named Larisa Latinina. She has 18 medals, 6 in 3 different Olympics. Simone Biles won 5 medals in 1 Olympics. This woman won 6 in every Olympics she's been in, which was 3. She has more than 3 times the amount of medals than Simone Biles has. Does that make her bad? Simone Biles, I mean? No. Listen, she's in the conversation. But let's stop throwing this weight on her, saying she's the greatest of all time. There are a lot of good people in this world. Simone Biles, in total medals in the Olympics, is 14th place. There's 8 others with 6 medals just like her. So you could say she's in 22nd place, actually. And the American woman gymnast with the most medals in the Olympics is not Simone Biles. It's Shannon Miller. She has 7. Somebody else who is more decorated than her. Let's take a look at Nadia Comaneci, who has 7 perfect 10s in the 76 Olympics in Montreal. Listen, I know the scoring's different today, right? But still, is anybody ever going to get a 10 again, ever, and be that perfect? Probably not. That has to be acknowledged. You got to stop embroidering your leotard, saying that you're so great. And listen, she could also say some things like, listen, I know I jump higher than everybody, but the floor now has springs in it. Like, do we not want to mention that? It's basically a trampoline. Back in the day, they had just a straight floor. So if somebody's jumping higher now, good for them. I bet you they can, because they are more muscular now. But listen, if you're trying to be humble, you have to admit that the floor now is basically a trampoline. They're also allowed to use hand grips now, which they had to go barehanded before. So there's a lot of reasons that she could say, listen, I'm in the mix. I just want to do my best, but there's so many people behind me. So this whole thing about pushing her to be, she's the best about this and that, I just think it has hurt her from the get-go. I think it's wrong. So let me sum up. I want to get this in about 30 minutes here, and we're pretty close to it. Simone Biles, she dropped out. Listen, I think it's a very smart move on her part, considering that she could get hurt. It's a smart move on her part. She's a multimillionaire. Why bother? Overall, though, this is a self-inflicted wound, and this needs to be looked at. It's not courageous not to take care of your mental health. And I don't mean that she's taking care of her mental health by dropping out now. She didn't take care of her mental health the last 24 years, and this is why it's come to this situation here. And I don't want to talk about it too much because I'm just going to leave this out because I don't want to get too racy, but she is reportedly, and she has said this, she is on ADHD medication, which is illegal in Japan, which also makes a difference because it's illegal in the Olympics, but she was able to get it because I guess they said that she was medically cleared to be able to do that. I don't know if she has ADHD or not. I'm not her therapist, but it's definitely a performance enhancer. And again, if you're going to take her off her ADHD medication, 2 weeks before the Olympics or the week of the Olympics is probably not the time to do it. You should have did this like 6 months to a year ago. Again, another mistake by her sports psychologists and all these therapists and trainers that are around her. So I hope you enjoyed this show and hope it was valuable to you in some way. I'd like to do another show about, I want to talk about Kerri Strug and some other things in gymnastics and sports in general. But that'll be for another day. So thanks for listening. If you liked any of this, please subscribe. I'll see you next time.